Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told Us podcast.
It's great to be diving into another story.
And today, you and I are about to unfold a surprisingly gripping tale, peeling back the layers on something you probably see or even use every single day, the humble glove.
That's right. It seems so simple, doesn't it? But think beyond just keeping your hands warm for a moment.
Okay.
We're about to journey through centuries, across cultures, and even into moments of, well, high drama, all thanks to this seemingly simple piece of handwear. It's a story woven right into the fabric of human history itself.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning because our exploration reveals that gloves are no newcomer to the human story. Can you picture this? We're looking at ancient Egypt, way back in the time of the 5th dynasty. And there it is evidence of gloves depicted right there in a tomb. That's thousands of years ago. What were they even using them for back then? Any idea?
Well, it's hard to say for sure from just depictions, but practicality seems likely. Protection, maybe status. What's truly fascinating is how quickly an item like a glove can take on deeper significance. Right.
Even in Homer's The Odyssey, around the 8th century BC, we find a reference to Laertes.
Odysseus' father.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Wearing gloves while tending his garden, presumably to protect his hands from thorns. Though it's interesting, some scholars interpret that passage differently.
How so?
They suggest it might just mean he was pulling down his long sleeves over his hands. So a little ancient translation mystery for you right there.
A glove mystery right from the start. I like it. But it gets even more intriguing, doesn't it?
It really does.
Imagine the scene. 5th century BC, Greece. The historian Herodotus tells this incredible story. Almost sounds like a thriller plot.
Ah, you mean Laertes.
Exactly. He was supposedly caught out because of a glove. Stuck with silver. A bribe, right?
Yes, a bribe. A glove used to conceal the silver. It's such a vivid image.
A glove as a smoking gun. You really can't make this stuff up. What does that tell us about how people viewed gloves even then? It really highlights a fascinating duality, doesn't it? The glove can conceal the bribe, or later, fingerprints, but it can also become a marker, an indicator of status, or in this case, evidence of wrongdoing. And while gloves seem to appear only sporadically in Roman history compared to, say, Egypt or Greece, we do have a lovely little anecdote from Pliny the Younger around 100 AD.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
His uncle had this incredibly dedicated shorthand writer. Apparently, this writer wore gloves in the winter.
To keep warm, obviously.
Well, yes, but specifically so, his chilly fingers wouldn't slow down the flow of Pliny's important dictation. Talk about commitment to the job, right?
Absolutely. That's dedication. Now, let's leap forward quite a bit, a few centuries to the Middle Ages. Here, the glove takes on a whole new, rather imposing identity.
The gauntlet.
Ah, yes.
The gauntlet.
Suddenly, it's not just about keeping warm or gardening. It's a crucial part of a soldier's armor. A metal-clad hand ready for battle. What was the importance of this armored glove?
Oh, it was absolutely vital. If you think about medieval combat, lots of close quarters fighting, swords, axes, protecting the hands was essential. The gauntlet offered that critical defense.
Makes sense.
However, things change. With the gradual dominance of firearms on the battlefield, the need for that kind of heavy hand-to-hand combat started to diminish.
So less need for the super heavy armor.
Exactly. And consequently, the battlefield role of the gauntlet began to fade. But the story doesn't end there, not by a long shot.
No, it definitely doesn't. Because around the 13th century, the glove undergoes this dazzling transformation, especially for women. Suddenly, we see these delicate gloves, linen, silk, sometimes stretching all the way up to the elbow.
It's a huge shift, isn't it? From battlefield steel to delicate fabrics.
Picture the sheer elegance of that fashion statement. What sparked this shift? Was it just changing tastes?
It likely reflects broader societal shifts. A greater emphasis on courtly life, fashion becoming a more prominent marker of status and refinement. But where there's fashion, there are often, well, let's say differing opinions.
Like moral objections?
Precisely. The Encrian Wis, which was a guide for religious women from that same period, actually expressed disapproval of such elaborate adornments. It shows us how even something as simple as a glove could become a point of social and even moral debate.
It's amazing how these unwritten rules of society developed. And sometimes they weren't unwritten, were they? There were actual laws.
That's right. Sumptuary laws started appearing. In Bologna, for instance, they legislated against gloves made of luxurious samite fabric.
Wow.
And later in Rome, there were restrictions on perfumed gloves. Clearly, gloves were becoming quite the sought-after and perhaps even controversial item.
Why the need for laws controlling gloves? Was it just about showing off?
It was often about regulating displays of wealth and maintaining social hierarchies. By restricting who could wear certain luxury items, authorities tried to keep people in their perceived place.
Interesting.
And this growth in glove popularity also led to the rise of specialized trades. We see the emergence of guilds, like the Paris Corporation of Glovers in the 13th century.
What did they work with?
All sorts of animal skins, furs, whatever was suitable. And across the English Channel, it took a bit longer, but glovers eventually organized their own dedicated guild, the Glovers Company, which got its charter in 1613.
So proper professional organizations.
Exactly. These guilds were crucial for setting standards, ensuring quality, and passing down the skills needed.
And when we talk about skill and artistry, the 16th century really stands out, doesn't it? Our sources call it the golden age of glove elaboration.
They absolutely do. And we have Queen Elizabeth, I would largely to thank for this.
Really? Wow.
She absolutely adored elaborate gloves, richly embroidered, covered in jewels. She made them the absolute height of fashion. There are accounts of her deliberately putting them on and taking them off during audiences.
Like a performance.
Almost. Drawing attention to her beautifully adorned hands, making a real statement about her power and taste. Think of the Ditchley portrait. Her hands are quite prominent.
Wow. I'll have to look that up. Talk about using accessories.
It paints such a vivid picture of the era, doesn't it? The deliberate gesture, the focus on the hands as a canvas for adornment, and the artistry wasn't just visual either.
You mean the perfumed gloves?
Exactly. Back in Paris, the glovers evolved into gantiers parfumers. They became incredibly skilled at scenting leather gloves with exquisite oils. This became so significant that it received royal recognition in 1656.
So being a perfumer glover was a recognized high-status profession.
Very much so. But it's interesting, there was a social divide here. Knitted gloves were also around.
Right.
But because they didn't hold perfume well and were generally seen as less refined, less luxurious, it actually led to the formation of a separate guild for the knitters, the bonnetiers.
Which really highlights how the material itself could reflect your social standing. And get this, I read that the apprenticeship to become a proper knitted glove maker was, what, 5 years?
A staggering 5 years, yes. And the quality control was intense.
How intense.
If the finished product, the knitted glove, was deemed defective by the guild, confiscation and public burning.
Burning. They burn the gloves.
They burn the gloves. Talk about a serious commitment to quality standards. No pressure on the apprentices, right?
Unbelievable. That's a fantastic, slightly terrifying detail. It truly underscores the value placed on skilled handwork back then.
It really does. And the trends just kept coming. The 17th century saw this fascination with gloves made from incredibly soft chicken skin.
Chicken skin. Okay, that's different.
Definitely aiming for softness and delicacy. But perhaps one of the most peculiar and maybe slightly unsettling trends was the limericks craze in Ireland.
Limericks. Like the poems?
No, named after the city. These were gloves crafted from the skin of unborn calves.
Oh, wow. That's, quite specific. And a bit macabre.
Macabre indeed. It certainly shows the extremes people would go to for a unique fashion statement. Extraordinary softness, apparently.
I guess so, and it wasn't just about everyday wear or high fashion, was it? These elaborate gloves also became symbols of power, actual insignia.
Absolutely. Richly embroidered and jeweled gloves were part of the regalia for emperors and kings. We even have records of them being discovered in the burials and significant figures like Henry II of England, King John, and Edward I. They were buried wearing these symbolic gloves.
Imagine the historical weight held within those delicate hand coverings. Wow.
And we shouldn't overlook their role in religious ceremonies either. Pontifical gloves.
Right, worn by bishops and cardinals during Mass.
Exactly. Worn by high-ranking clergy. The exact origin is a little unclear. Some believe they started from a practical need for cleanliness when handling sacred objects.
Makes sense.
Others see them as another element added over time, part of the increasing pomp and ceremony surrounding church rituals. Probably a bit of both.
You know, reflecting on all these different uses and materials, metal, silk, chicken skin, jewels, it's clear the glove is far more adaptable than we might initially think. And as clothing styles changed, glove fashion followed suit, right?
Oh, definitely. In the 1700s, think about those portraits. Women's sleeves started getting shorter.
Right, the elbow length or three-quarter sleeves became popular.
And voila. Long gloves became incredibly fashionable, extending up the arm, sometimes past the elbow, to cover the exposed skin. It created a very elegant silhouette.
And fast forward another century or so to the 1870s, it seems there was a whole unspoken language of gloves.
There really was. It was all about the occasion. You'd have specific gloves for evening wear, buttoned kidskin, maybe silk or velvet. Very fine, very formal.
And for daytime.
Longer suede gloves were often the choice for daytime wear. Different materials, different lengths, different closures. It was a subtle but definite form of social communication, signaling your understanding of etiquette.
Fascinating. And then you have something like the Berlin gloves popping up in the 19th century. What were those?
Ah, those were much more practical. Basically, washable white cotton gloves. They were accessible to servants who needed to look neat and handle things cleanly, but also to less wealthy civilians who wanted a presentable look without the expensive leather or silk.
So a more democratic glove, in a way?
Sort of, yes. And interestingly, they even found their way into American military uniforms during World War I. A humble cotton glove with a surprisingly wide reach across society.
It's fascinating how these trends mirror broader social and economic shifts. Now let's shift gears slightly because our exploration also uncovers a more, well, clandestine aspect of glove history, their connection to crime.
Yes, it's quite remarkable how the practical aspect hiding fingerprints was recognized relatively early on.
When are we talking?
As early as 1905, a British legal publication, the Law Times, noted that gloves were becoming an indispensable part of a burglar's outfit. They saw it coming.
But there's an ironic twist, isn't there?
Ah, huge one. Gloves themselves, especially leather or textured ones, can leave unique prints. Impressions of the seams, the grain, the material itself.
So the very thing used to hide identity could become evidence.
Exactly. While intended to prevent leaving fingerprints, gloves could leave their own distinct mark. And police forensics adapted. Leather gloves, often favored by criminals for their good grip and dexterity, led to the development of techniques specifically for dusting for and analyzing glove prints.
Talk about a double-edged, well, finger. Okay, halfway through our journey here, and what a journey it's been. If you're finding this deep dive into the world of gloves as fascinating as we are, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Tell Me More Stories, Told as Podcast. You won't want to miss the other surprising histories we uncover.
Absolutely. There's always more to the story.
Okay, so we've journeyed from ancient Egypt to Victorian high society and even the shadowy world of crime. But believe it or not, the story of gloves takes another dramatic turn into an astonishing array of specialized forms.
Oh, absolutely. When you start to delve into the sheer variety of gloves designed for specific purposes today, it's truly eye-opening. It goes way beyond fashion or basic warmth.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay, think about the early days of Formula One racing. Drivers were grappling with these big wooden steering wheels.
Right, not much power steering back then.
Exactly. So specialized driving gloves were developed thin leather, often with perforations, maybe open backs designed purely for better grip and feel on the wheel.
Crucial for control.
Absolutely. Or consider the invention of disposable latex gloves developed by the company Ansell. That was revolutionary.
For medicine, obviously.
For medicine, food handling, laboratories, it completely transformed hygiene practices in countless fields. A massive public health impact from a simple disposable glove.
And the list just explodes from there, doesn't it? Industrial gloves.
Oh, the range is incredible. You've got commercial and industrial gloves engineered for aircrew, giving temporary protection from scorching hot surfaces if they have to evacuate. Anti-vibration gloves for workers using jackhammers or heavy machinery.
Wow.
Incredibly tough chainmail gloves, literally made of metal mesh, used by butchers, oyster shuckers, even law enforcement dealing with sharp objects.
Like modern gauntlets.
In a way, yes. Then there are gloves resistant to corrosive chemicals, gloves for handling extremely hot materials, gloves for extreme cold, cut-resistant gloves made with Kevlar or similar materials. It's a whole universe of hand-specific protection.
Designed for incredibly diverse needs. Firemen's gauntlets, sandblasting gloves, welders' gloves.
Oh.
The list seems endless.
It really does. And that's just the commercial and industrial side. Then you venture into the realm of sports and recreation, and it gets even more specialized.
Right, like American football gloves with that super tacky grip.
Exactly. Or archer's gloves, designed for a smooth arrow release. The iconic baseball mitt, that's basically a highly specialized glove, isn't it?
Definitely.
Boxing gloves, essential for safety. Cycling gloves for grip and padding. Falconry gloves, thick leather to protect from talons. Fencing gloves for hand protection.
Goalkeeper gloves in football. Golf gloves for grip. Ice hockey gloves, heavily padded.
Yeah.
Gym gloves. Riding gloves. Lacrosse.
Kendokote, the armored gloves for Japanese fencing, MMA gloves, balancing protection and grappling ability, motorcycling gloves, often armored, oven mitts, technically a glove.
True. Paintball gloves, racing driver gloves, connected back to those early F1 gloves, scuba diving gloves, different types for different water temperatures.
Right, cotton liners, dry gloves, wet gloves, shooting gloves for various disciplines, touchscreen gloves so you can use your phone in the cold, skiing gloves, underwater hockey gloves, even web gloves for sun training.
It's mind-boggling. Weightlifting gloves, wicketkeepers gloves in cricket, even the Nintendo Power Glove back in the day.
Don't forget wheelchair gloves for propulsion and grip. The specialization seems endless, each tailored for a very precise activity or need.
We even have those highly specific women's fashion gloves still, don't we? The shorter wrist or matinee gloves.
Right, and the elbow-length ones, and the really glamorous opera or full-length gloves that you still see for very formal events like balls or galas.
And here's a fascinating cultural note I came across. In Japan, white gloves are quite common, aren't they?
Yes, very much so. You'll often see them worn by professionals in various roles: taxi drivers, bus drivers, police officers, sometimes politicians, or elevator operators. It symbolizes cleanliness, professionalism, and a certain formality.
But there's a caution about white gloves too, right?
Yeah.
Especially for certain tasks.
Ah, yes. A crucial point for anyone interested in handling old documents or books. While white cotton gloves seem like a good idea for keeping things clean,
They're not.
they can actually be detrimental. You lose tactile sensitivity, making you more likely to handle fragile items clumsily. Plus, the gloves themselves can snag on brittle paper or transfer dirt. For archival work, clean, dry hands are usually preferred. Good tip to remember.
Good tip indeed, and the innovation keeps going. What about fingerless gloves? They seem quite popular now.
They are sometimes called glovelets. They're designed for tasks where you need dexterity, where your fingertips need to be free. Oh, all sorts. Historically, maybe cigarette smokers or church organists. Today, cyclists often use them for grip and padding while keeping their fingers free for brakes and gears. Guitar players sometimes use them, and of course for using touchscreen devices.
Right, because the fabric usually doesn't work on screens.
Exactly. Fingerless gloves offer padding, maybe some warmth over the hand, ventilation, grip, but keep those fingertips exposed. MMA fighters use a specific type of fingerless glove too.
And then there's the hybrid, the glitten.
Yes. The convertible mitten. A clever design where you have a mitten for warmth, but you can fold back the top part to expose your fingers when you need dexterity. Best of both worlds, kind of.
It truly is all about adapting the glove to the precise task at hand, isn't it? Now let's take a closer look at one of the most enduring and arguably most classic glove materials, leather. What makes leather so good for gloves?
Well, leather has this unique combination of properties. It can offer a really comfortable, conforming fit over time it shapes to your hand. And crucially, its natural grain and pores provide a remarkably useful grip.
That friction.
Exactly. That inherent friction is why leather gloves are so effective and popular in sports, like baseball, the mitt, of course, but also handball. Cycling gloves often have leather palms. American football receiver gloves incorporate it.
And for protection too, right?
Absolutely. As we touched on earlier, it offers essential protection in numerous occupations. Think beekeepers guarding against stings, construction workers needing a secure hold on tools and materials, welders protecting against intense heat and sparks. Leather's toughness is key there.
And there's such a wide array of leathers used for gloves, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's not just one type.
Not at all. There's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
You have the incredibly supple lambskin, often called Napa leather, which is favored for elegant European fashion gloves because it's so soft and thin.
Nice for dress gloves.
Definitely. Then you have much more robust leathers like cowhide, very durable, good for work gloves, or deerskin, which is known for its strength but also its softness and elasticity. It stays flexible even when wet. Very rugged.
What about the really high-end stuff?
Well, you have hair sheep leather, which comes from sheep that grow hair, not wool. It's fine-grained, strong, but lightweight, highly prized for quality dress gloves. And then there's peccary leather.
Peccary. What's that?
It comes from a type of wild pig found in South America. It's considered the rarest and most luxurious gloving leather. It's incredibly soft, famously durable, and has a very distinctive porous texture. Very expensive, very sought after.
Wow. And sheepskin too, like shearling.
Yep, sheepskin or shearling, where the wool is left on the inside, makes for incredibly warm winter gloves or mittens. And slink lamb from unborn lambs, similar to those limericks we mentioned, known for extreme softness.
And the inside matters too, right? The lining.
Oh, absolutely. The lining contributes hugely to the feel and function. You might have cashmere for ultimate warmth and softness, silk for a cool, smooth feel, often used in dress gloves, or wool for warmth and elasticity. Other synthetic blends are common too, balancing warmth, moisture wicking, and cost.
It really does sound like a bespoke garment for your hands. And constructing a leather glove seems quite complex. You mentioned terms like tranks, fourchettes.
It is quite intricate. A well-made leather glove isn't just one piece of material. The main body piece is the trank. Then you have separate pieces for the thumb, often complex to insert correctly for movement. The fourchettes are those little rectangular strips of leather sewn between the fingers, crucial for fit and dexterity. Sometimes there are gussets or quirks, small diamond shapes added to the base of the fingers, especially on very high-quality, hand-sewn gloves for extra flexibility.
So a lot of small pieces carefully stitched together.
Exactly. And the stitching itself is important. You have hand stitching, which is very labor-intensive and usually found on the most expensive gloves, creating a distinct, often external seam, or inseam stitching done by machine, where the seam allowance is inside the glove, giving a cleaner look.
And there's whole vocabulary around glove features too.
There is. Button length refers to the measurement up the arm from the base of the thumb. Points are the decorative stitched lines often seen on the back of the hand, usually 3 lines. We mentioned fourchettes and quirks. Perforations are small holes for ventilation, common in driving gloves. A vent is a V-shaped slit at the cuff for easier wearing. Sometimes there's a strap and roller closure at the wrist. Lots of specific terms.
And driving gloves, we touched on them, but they really have a specific design philosophy, don't they?
They really do. It's all about that connection to the steering wheel. Usually a very snug fit. Seams are often stitched to the outside, outseam, so they don't rub against your fingers inside. Open knuckles or open backs for flexibility and ventilation are common. Short cuffs, so they don't interfere with your watch or sleeves. Often a snap closure at the wrist for security. And frequently made from that lovely, grippy, peckery leather.
It's all about function driving the form.
Precisely. Which leads us neatly to a vital aspect of modern gloves, safety standards, especially in industrial and occupational settings.
All right, these aren't just accessories. They're personal protective equipment, PPE.
Exactly. And there are rigorous standards to ensure they actually protect people. In Europe, for example, you'll see gloves marked with EN numbers. That's the European norm.
What do those numbers mean?
They signify that the glove has been tested and meets specific standards for different types of protection. There are standards for mechanical risks, things like abrasion, cuts, tears, punctures, standards for chemical and microorganism risks, general requirements for fit and dexterity, specific standards for protection against electric shock, heat and fire, cold, even things like anti-static properties and anti-vibration.
So if you need gloves for a specific job hazard, you can look for the relevant EN standard.
That's the idea. These standards ensure that workers and employers providing the gloves can choose the appropriate hand protection for the specific tasks they undertake. It's incredibly important for preventing serious injuries in the workplace.
It's incredibly reassuring to know that there are such rigorous standards and testing in place. Now, as we begin to bring our exploration to a close, we really can't overlook the surprising impact gloves have had in popular culture, can we?
Not at all. Sometimes a single glove can become iconic.
Like Michael Jackson's glove.
Exactly. His single, jeweled glove. It became an instant signature look recognized globally. It wasn't about protection or warmth. It was pure performance art, pure style statement. And those gloves fetch huge sums at auction now. A simple glove elevated to the status of a global cultural symbol.
Amazing. And then there's the much darker, more dramatic example, the one from the O.J. Simpson trial.
Ah, yes. The infamous dark leather glove found at the crime scene and the matching one found later. The moment in the courtroom where Simpson struggled to put on the glove.
And the defense attorney's line.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. That phrase became unforgettable, a defining moment not just in the trial, but in popular consciousness regarding the legal system and evidence. It's a stark reminder of how even a seemingly ordinary item, a glove, can play such a pivotal role in real-world events with profound, lasting consequences.
It's just incredible, isn't it? How an everyday item can suddenly become imbued with such immense significance, carrying the weight of fashion history, legal drama, personal identity.
It really is quite striking.
Well, this has been an absolutely fascinating journey into the world of gloves. I mean, from their ancient origins in Egyptian tombs to their modern specialized forms protecting against extreme hazards, and all the surprising appearances in history, fashion, and culture. It's clear that this humble hand covering has a truly remarkable, multifaceted story to tell.
Indeed. Who would have thought, right? Such a simple garment, but connected to so much history, so many diverse uses, moments of high fashion, royal burials, courtroom drama. It certainly makes you look at the next pair of gloves you pick up a little differently.
It really does. We certainly hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and maybe given you a brand new appreciation for them. What kind of gloves do you use most often? Or which part of the story did you find most interesting? And what other seemingly ordinary items out there might have an equally surprising history waiting for us to uncover? We genuinely love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you so much for joining us on Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. Until our next story unfolds.
And here's a final thought to leave you with, something to ponder. Consider how the simple act of wearing, or pointedly not wearing, gloves can communicate so much. Protection, yes, but also formality, status, hygiene, maybe even a deliberate attempt to conceal, or, conversely, to make a statement. What unspoken messages do our hands, covered or uncovered, send out into the world every day?